As an attorney who was practicing immigration law under the Trump administration, I wanted to make a quick video to go over some of the changes that are likely going to be happening in the upcoming year during a Trump second administration. I mean, this is really, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, this is just something that's the reality that's going to happen under a Trump administration. And so, besides that, I also wanted to talk about keeping families together. And Keeping Families Together is basically dead. And that was a program that was designed to allow people who were not admitted or paroled into the United States and had a United States citizen spouse or had a United States citizen step parent. They were able to apply, submit this application. The whole idea behind it was to then have them be paroled if they met all the other requirements, good moral character, didn't have arrests, was in a dangerous society, etc., a bunch of other requirements. But that program is done. So now people have the option that was always available, possibly if they have a qualifying relative, for a 601A waiver, also known as an unlawful presence waiver. And so what is a qualifying relative for that waiver is a United States citizen or a green card parent or spouse. And that's it. So if you have a child, you don't qualify. Who's a United States citizen or green card holder, you don't qualify if it's a child. It has to be a parent or it has to be a spouse. And also, one other bad thing about that is, well, the whole idea of being admitted or paroled into the United States, or not idea, but having been admitted or paroled into the United States, allows a lot of people to then be able to adjust status while remaining in the United States. And so now, even though the 601A waiver may be available to some of these folks, they will need to wait 5-6 years. Right now is the time that it takes, even sometimes longer, for those waivers to be approved. And then they will need to leave and go and do consular processing at a U.S. embassy, likely at their home country. So, it's going to take a lot longer. A lot of people are scared to leave. So there's all kinds of issues. But obviously, there's other eligibility or inadmissibility issues. And so obviously, if you fall into these categories and you see, oh, I have a parent or I do have a spouse and maybe I do qualify for this, well, then make sure you seek out counsel from an immigration attorney and have them assess your case closely to see if you qualify, if this is a good option for you. But besides that, going to the changes that I foresee under a Trump administration, for family immigration, the last few years we've had a lot of basically all the interviews are almost waived, probably 99% of them. And so people don't need to go to the interviews. But I remember I would go to hundreds of interviews during the Trump administration, especially if it was marriage-based. But even if it was like a parent or child, they brought everybody in for interviews. So they would question you. If it was marriage-based, they would question you, ask you a bunch of questions about the marriage, the relationship, make sure it's a bona fide marriage. And honestly, a lot of times officers would just go way overboard with this. It was very clear that this was a real marriage, and they still, because they had, I guess, the instruction from higher up, that they sometimes abuse that power. And so, and it was it's usually just a stressful situation for clients. But that's the reality. They're probably going to bring those interviews back. Also with the green cards, depending on the officer, they could go over every single question, or the majority of the questions. Some officers were still nice, of course, and a lot of them are still very professional, and even the aggressive ones are professionals, really, for the most part, has been my experience. But did they go a little overboard? Yeah. And so this is probably going to happen again, where we're going to have more aggression and more aggressive, interviewing techniques and etc. being employed during these interviews. So that's something to look out for. Also, the processing times right now on average is about 6 to 8 months for these applications, family-based green card applications. And I remember during the Trump administration, it was like a year and a half, sometimes even longer. So it's possible that the processing times get delayed as well. Naturalization, also processing times, especially in Los Angeles, has been like 3 to 4 months, but I think nationwide it's like 6 to 8 months or so. And during the Trump administration, it was like a year and a half to get a interview after filing for your naturalization citizenship application. So I believe that during those interviews, also officers are probably going to be a little more aggressive. It's just the culture is going to change a little bit. And that's going to mean being more aggressive and vetting people more closely. And, whatever you think of that, it doesn't really matter. That's just the reality. And I do know that it just probably puts people under probably unnecessary scrutiny at many times. I've seen it in my experience and going to hundreds of these interviews. So, but deportation cases also, really quickly, prosecutorial discretion is probably going to cease to exist. So basically, DHS officers are not going to be dismissing cases for people who have form of relief outside of immigration court, where they can go maybe file an application with USCIS and just get themselves out of deportation proceedings. I foresee that that's not going to happen. It didn't happen during the Trump administration the first time. I don't see it happening during a second term either. And I also see that the ICE DHS attorneys are going to be a lot more aggressive. They're going to fight every case and basically try to have every single person really prove their case. So it's going to be increasingly important that you get a strong advocate for yourself if you are in deportation proceedings or you have a loved one who is. With that said, of course, there's going to be other changes as well. So we'll just have to stay tuned. If you need to speak to somebody and you want to reach out to me, you know how to reach me. You can call me at my office, or you can go to the website, rodarmandalaw.com, to schedule a strategy session. And I will keep you guys updated as things unfold here. And I hope everyone stays safe and have a nice day.